The cool refresher, Mace. It is time for Orange and Blue today. How you doing on Friday, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day. You know, we haven't had many pure autumn days in Denver this fall, but we had one today. Temperature in the 60s, bright sunshine. It was a great day to be out checking out Broncos practice as they wrapped up their work before facing the Carolina Panthers. Just a lovely day in the Mile High City.
I love it. I absolutely love it. We are here for you. It is Orange and Blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason talking about your Denver Broncos and why there may be a change coming up at the safety position this week. Mace, what do we know here about Devin Key and most importantly, PJ Locke's status first?
Yeah, PJ Locke thumb injury on Wednesday. It limited him in practice on Wednesday. Did not practice either of the last 2 days. The Broncos are not ruling him out yet, but he is considered doubtful, which that's a 20% chance or less of playing. So that would likely tilt the scales to PJ Locke sitting this one out. And look, if there's any doubt, like this is the sort of game where even though you're taking the Carolina Panthers seriously, if you had to rest the starter just to make sure he was ready to go as you get in November, this would be an opportunity to do it. And of course, but that being said, safety is another position where the Broncos don't have a lot of proven depth.
Right.
Devin Key is the next man up. He's never started. He's played 35 defensive snaps in his career all this year. Spent the previous 3 years on practice squads, including last year with the Broncos. So he would be stepping up in class if asked to start alongside Brandon Jones. But to a man, the Broncos seem like they feel pretty good about him.
Yeah, they do feel pretty good about Devin Key. We're going to hear from Devin Key in this show as well. You want to start with PS2 talking about him or Sean Payton talking about Devin Key?
Let's hear from PS2. PS2, of course, met the media today. They held him back from doing his usual Wednesday press conference as he was still in the concussion protocol, but he's cleared that. PS2 had a week of full practice. He's good to go. And he likes what he's seen from Devin Key, specifically likes what he's seen from him in terms of in the meeting rooms and getting the defense down pat.
Yeah, Key, he's always been one of those guys that's always been smart. We trust in Key a large amount because he always in the film room. He's a very savvy player. He understands the game. And, when PJ went down, obviously it's a tough situation. But, Key, we all trust in Key because he's put it out there each and every week. So we're very excited for him and his opportunity for himself. So, he's a great player.
And talks about him cerebrally. And that's why I want to play the clip from Devin Key talking about where he's grown, because when you and I caught up with him on Thursday, one of the questions I asked him was about where he'd come the farthest over the last year, going from the practice squad to now the 53-player roster, sticking on the roster coming out of training camp. Here's what Key had to say about that.
That's a good question. I just feel like, I've just continued to build and improve my knowledge of the game, of the NFL style, study a little bit more, that type of stuff.
He's ready.
He's ready. He's ready up here. And I like the fact that he's gotten some snaps, that they did give him a handful of reps over the last several weeks. He had that sack, of course, of Baker Mayfield down in Tampa Bay in week 3. So there's the ability to make kind of a, maybe not a game-changing play, but to make a big play. If they bring him on the blitz, he can provide something as well. And this may be a game where, even though Bryce Young, he'll take off and run, this may be the type of game where you bring some pass rush from some creative spots, like from the safeties, like from the nickel corner, and try to disguise things and confuse Bryce Young to where you've got him hesitant instead of taking off and doing things with his legs, which he can do.
Yes, and you mentioned how he could make a game-changing play. I'll flip it, Mace, and say he won't allow a game-changing play made against you because of his mental understanding of this game, high football intelligence. And when someone like PS2, who doesn't necessarily doesn't do the Von Miller. We love Von, but everybody's great. Everything's great. Paxton Lynch is great. Like, these are all words Von Miller said. PS2 wouldn't be mean to someone, but to have PS2 highlight the mental capacity of this young man just gives you the steadiness of he's not going to make that big mistake that could cost you in a game where you don't want to give Carolina any sort of, life or hope there.
Yeah. Now, the Broncos have shown the ability to rally when they let an opponent start fast. We saw that against the Raiders back in week 5 when the Broncos were admittedly a little bit confused as to what to expect from Las Vegas without Davante Adams. They practiced all week preparing for Adams to be out there. He didn't play. And so a couple of shots to Brock Bowers seemed to catch the Broncos off guard there, but they quickly rallied. This game, I think you want to actually cut that off and make sure it doesn't happen. It's a Panthers team that's going to be without Adam Thielen. It's going to be without Deontay Johnson. They're banged up. You've got your changing quarterbacks, but after Andy Dalton had a thumb injury in the traffic collision that he had in Charlotte earlier this week. So it's a team where I think you want to come out and get the punch on them and not give them a reason to believe, because they're walking in here off of a disastrous performance against Washington. Offense didn't do anything until the later stretches of the game in a 40-7 loss. Keep them down. They're coming in here down. Keep them down. Don't give them a helping hand. Don't make that mistake that allows them to get back up and start feeling their confidence and giving him a chance for an upset.
Don't let him back up off the mat, basically. And the return of Pat Surtain. This is something very interesting, Mace. You were in the locker room today when PS2 talked about his return. And, well, it was a short week last week, so what if not? Let's set this up because I think PS2 against Xavier Legette, most likely. There's not much in Carolina without Deontay and without Adam Thielen. So Xavier Legette, you're up. You get Pat Surtain. But you were there when Surtain said something maybe a little bit surprising to some in Broncos country, thinking, oh, yeah, it's a short week. Of course he's not going to get through the concussion protocol, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of the first thought that you had was when he got injured. First, you're concerned for his safety, obviously, make sure he's okay. But secondly, it was, okay, you got a short week. Chances of him getting through that post-concussion protocol are pretty minimal. Maybe he would have played on a Sunday if it had been a full week to rest and recuperate. Not necessarily so.
Probably not. No, it would have taken a few more days after to really get cleared. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Tells you about the severity of the concussion as well. That it's not something that was a 1 week injury. Now, he had progressed to the point where when he got out there for practice on Wednesday, he had his helmet on and a full workload, which certainly was a positive sign. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of look back at that because I think there was the sentiment, oh, well, a full week could have gotten back. I think we speculated about it. As he said, not the case.
Yeah, not the case for the Denver Broncos. Great corner out there. A linebacker in Quan Alexander, who's been very interesting. Great to talk to this week. And him being out there with that veteran presence, even with the Steelers last year, Mace, before he got hurt, he was making plays. So Quan's here. He's up to speed, and I think both you and I applauded that move when it happened for the Broncos. We'll see what he can do this week as well.
Like the way he played last week coming in, like the speed with which he played. Looked like a young Quan Alexander out there. His first game back since he tore his Achilles last year for Pittsburgh, and looked to be all the way back. Now, unfortunately, with Quan Alexander, given the recent injury history, you're kind of holding your breath a little bit. How much can you get out of him? But certainly looked the part. You like him because, all respect to Justin Sternad, he's a bit stronger at the point of attack against the run. And this is where you say, okay, we've got PS2, Riley Moss, and then Jaquan McMillan in the slot. McMillan struggled a bit when he went outside a couple of weeks back. In the slot, that's his home. He's very effective. Riley Moss and PS2 among the league leaders in fewest yards of separation allowed per route. Riley Moss is a revelation. I mean, the way he's playing, he'd be a CB1 on a lot of teams.
Oh, yeah.
And he's your CB2. With that kind of quality there, you can tell your linebackers, okay, maybe you don't have to worry too much about coverage responsibilities because we're covered on the back end, attack. And that's something that Quan Alexander can do very well.
Yeah, and he talked about the thrill of being here in the locker room. Here's what Quan had to say.
Man, it's been a blessing, man, for real, just to even get back out there year 10. With all the things I done been through, but just trying to pick up the playbook, trying to get everything going. This is my first time not being in camp and stuff like that, so still picking it up, and I'm going to be fine, man. I'm learning a lot faster now, so it's smooth. It ain't that much different.
Yeah, it's aggressive, and Quan Alexander likes that.
I like how he pointed out that it was his first year without training camp, so basically you're having to start from zero when you come in. Of course, he joined the Broncos heading into week 4 when they were out in West Virginia practicing at the Greenbrier. Pardon me. So getting up to speed in 3 weeks is actually pretty good in terms of learning a defense. No problems there. And I think also respectfully to Justin Sternad, you can kind of see, okay, this is the direction the Broncos wanted to go. They brought in Quan Alexander. They brought in Zach Cunningham. Let's see which one kind of gets the poll first. Turns out it's Quan Alexander. I will be interested to see, though, with Quan Alexander, you're still talking about a guy who technically is on the practice squad.
Yeah. So what kind of moves do they do there?
You have 2 elevations left on Quan Alexander. So is the play Alexander for 2 more elevations and then Zach Cunningham comes in and starts? Or has Alexander shown enough to where you say, okay, we got to get him on the 53, and then you're going to have some more roster moves? I mean, it's really, the Broncos roster manipulation, it's really interesting right now, in part because you've gone through 4 activations from injured reserve already. You're only allowed 8 in a regular season. The Broncos have already used 4 on Audric Estime, Damari Mathis, Baron Browning, Mike McGlinchey. And you're sitting there looking on injured reserve at Josh Reynolds, Luke Wattenberg, Tyler Bidet. If you bring those guys back, that leaves you with only 1 elevation left for the rest of the season. So there may be it'll be interesting to see how the Broncos kind of use injured reserve and use these practice squad elevations here, because they may also, down to the practice squad, they may need to create a spot to make room for Quan Alexander if he keeps playing the way he's playing. Yeah,
it's playing good football, and you love to see it. You were in the locker room today, and yesterday the news came down about Josh Reynolds. We talked about it on yesterday's show. We were in the locker room, and then we were out of the locker room, and
pretty
the news
quick
was happening. Right.
Yeah.
So with a day, to prepare and, get their thoughts together and such, you had a chance to catch up with some of the players about Josh Reynolds. Who do you want to start with here? Because Sean Payton talked about Reynolds, the situation, and then even Garett Bolles, a leader amongst the team, talked about it as well.
Let's start with Garett Bolles, because he's not too far away from Josh Reynolds in the locker room. They had a lot of conversations. As often happens with players that are near each other in the locker room, they start chatting, they get pretty close, and Garett Bolles, very fond of Josh Reynolds, very much looking out for him at this time.
We talked, I'll leave that conversation between me and him. but he knows he's loved and cared for with me. Whatever he needs from me and this team, I'm gonna do whatever I can to make sure that he's, in a good mental state of mind. I think, going through something like that, I don't think there's much that you can say to a person, just because, a lot of us have never experienced that before. So just caring for him and knowing that we love him and he's one of our brothers goes a long way. So he knows he's cared for. And like I said, man, it's a crazy situation, and we just got to support him, and hopefully he makes a speed recovery and gets back on the football field where he's happy and where he's helping us win football games.
I like that. And just letting him know that he's cared for. And I think that's something when our friends, coworkers, whoever goes through life and you don't know what to say, sometimes all you have to say is, I'm here for you, man.
Yeah. I've experienced that this week.
I've reached out to you and I said the same thing, right? I said, anything you need, bro.
I mean, it's been, it's made me really grateful for the people around me who have reached out and offered their support. And again, anything, that I've heard that a lot. Anything you need, I'm like, well, okay, and I'm not very good at taking people up on that offer sometimes. I'll say I've gotten a little bit better at that in the the last 24 hours at taking taking people up on such an offer. But no, it's something that it's cool to see. It's a reminder that this team has a pretty strong sense of association, and it's a bond that they have. And I'm not saying a lot of teams don't have bonds, but this is a pretty tight-knit group that Sean Payton has put together here. And it's, to his credit, it's part of the roster construction. I think there's been some careful moves made to have the right kinds of people meshing together.
Yes.
It's a good group of personalities.
It's influence and it's culture. And that's from Sean Payton, putting the right players in place that can influence and then building the right culture. And Jonathan Cooper has told us it's not just the defense loving up on each other. The whole team loves each other. And you could hear it when Garrett talked about Josh Reynolds right there.
Yeah. And let's hear what Sean Payton had to say about Josh Reynolds. He opened his press conference today talking about him.
He's fortunate. And so currently the league and then obviously the local authorities are handling that. I've had a chance to talk with him. He was pretty shaken up, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Keep the conversations in-house. I mean, I will say it's, we've seen Josh Reynolds around. It's been good to see him back at work. But I mean, we can only empathize and think, man, that would shake anybody up.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, for sure. That is correct.
Appreciate the kind words, Keith, by the way. Yeah. I mean, just catching up those who don't know, my father passed away last Saturday. Been dealing with some medical issues for a while. But it's still, you think you're prepared for it, and then you're not, right? You think you're prepared, that you've kind of steeled yourself, and then when the finality of it hits, it's something different, and it's not a straight line up getting back on track. It's I kind of backslid last night. It was not a good night last night. Couldn't really get work done. There's a reason why those clips came to you at 1 a.m. to get ready for this show when I was going through the video, man, because I was not in the state to do any work until about 9:30 or 10 o'clock last night.
Right.
So
right. Yep. And we're all here for you. Chat room certainly lighting up about it. And that's for sure, man. Just appreciate you all out there. Appreciate you, Mace, as we go through this Broncos journey together.
Appreciate the Broncos as well. I mean, it's good. It's good to have something to kind of get your focus on something else. Get back to work. Get back to talking football, and hopefully talking about a 5th win 5-3. If they get there, man, that's where I had them after 8 games. Didn't have the exact wins and losses right, but I had them losing to Tampa Bay and beating the Chargers. Because I said they always split with the Chargers. Well, hopefully that will remain the case, but the Broncos are going to have to go on the road to do that.
Good thing it's like a home
December.
game out there in LA.
Yeah. I mean, the poor Chargers on the road at home. Hey, they could have stayed in San Diego. And yeah, a lot of Broncos fans used to show up in San Diego, but nothing. It was nothing like it's been in LA. I mean, the Bronco fans were there and present and audible, but until the last few years, the Chargers had in San Diego, the Chargers had a good home field advantage. That, as people got fed up with the Spanoses and fed up with the rumors of the team moving, that started to change. But I miss like games in like 02, 04, 05, 06, when that was a really hostile crowd and a really tough place to play down in San Diego.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it used to be. You remember when? All right, Mace, we have a special Saturday show for everybody since it's not a short week. So OBT is ABFD, and it is a 7-day show. So everyone stay tuned for that. We wrapping up here on Friday, baby. Like stretch it out a little bit.
I think so. We've touched on PJ Locke being doubtful, dove into Devin Key. I'm curious to see what he can do, man. That's if you looked at a position depth wise on the roster that you were probably most concerned about if there was an injury, it was safety. And we talked about that in training camp when Brandon Jones was down for a bit. Now, Jones, of course, they were cautious with him, which was very smart coming off that hamstring injury. And so far, knock on whatever surface you can find, Brandon Jones has held up really well this year. But yeah, the depth there, it's a concern until you can find out what Devin Key has. And if he lives up to what Pat Surtain said. Did we play the Sean Payton comment from Devin Key yet or no?
On Devin Key?
Yeah.
Let me see. No, I don't believe we played Sean Payton. We played PS2 on Key.
Let's hear from Sean Payton really quick when I asked him about Devin Key this afternoon.
I would say, man, he made some hay in camp and in the preseason games where we felt like this guy, has got good instincts and he played well. And so, if he has to go, he'll be ready. He's gotten a lot of the work. So, we're fortunate we've seen his progress and here we go. If that happens, next man up.
And I'll say this. Last year, remember, the Broncos weren't happy with their corner depth in camp. And so they brought in Fabian Moreau. They're not shy about adding to what they have with veterans who are on the market if they're not confident in the depth on hand. Devin Key, they've said we're good. Devin Key, JL Skinner as the backup safeties, and Key ahead of Skinner in the algorithm. When the Broncos went light at safety a couple weeks back, it was not Key that was inactive, but JL Skinner, which tells you Devin Key is safety number 3. Tells you what they think of him, that they haven't gone to add a veteran, and there were plenty of veterans out there that they were comfortable with him. Now, some of that also probably comes from the fact that the aforementioned Brandon Jones hamstring injury, you got to see Key out there with the ones, and the Broncos liked what they saw. So there's a lot of confidence in that building in Devin Key, veteran of 3 practice squad seasons, potentially making his starting debut.
Hopefully, I can speak English. Hopefully you like what you see on Orange and Blue today here on YouTube. And as we grow our YouTube channel, Mace, we need some people's help. How can they help us out?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never
miss a vid. That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying, yeah, it is a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?